Everybody, I'm JJ. You're watching Reality Survival, and we are here with Tag from Life Done Free and Grid Down. How you doing, Tag?
Man, life's good. It's a little hot though.
Yeah. What have you guys been up to lately?
Yeah, well, goodness, lots. So been spending a lot of times in the garden. Obviously, it's that time of year. We continue to add to our food forests and our gardens and that. We've been working on our first ever community specific building, which is so awesome. We built a 30 by 73 or building, a 30 by 73 building that'll be able to house about 100 people as far as being able to sit down and eat. But it's got a full kitchen in it, 2 bathrooms. It's on private land, super important.
Cool.
But it's funny, you and I were talking about this beforehand. Because I was a prepper first before being a homesteader, I look at it from a prepping perspective too. And I say, man, it's so cool. I can house 30 people and I can, provide climate control for 30 people. And it's got its own grid down system and its own water system, obviously all off grid. And so nice. I'm excited to get, that project done. Since last time we talked, I built another pond. So I'm up to 4 now, which is pretty cool. Community keeps growing. We've added, just this month, have added 2 new people who have purchased land down here in our area this month. So it'll be interesting to watch them go through their homesteading, freesteading journey. So just busy.
Give people a little bit of background for those that haven't, seen our past discussions and whatnot on kind of your philosophy on how you're building your community out there in Kansas.
Yeah. So community is such an interesting word. And, when I first started this journey, I thought of community as this, single thing. But as I get older and as I've been through it more and more, I really look at it differently now. I look at it as a series of circles, a series of things or places, not just one. And so we use all of those circles to ultimately recruit to the inner circle, which is what we call the crew. But I look at it like, most people refer to intentional communities. I look at it more like the intentional neighborhood model. Here where we live, I own my land. There's nobody who lives on my land but me. My family, obviously, but lives here. But we collectively now have 1,200 acres that are made up of a whole bunch of homesteads. But what makes it work is they have sovereignty. And this is where I think most of the intentional community area people get this wrong. We don't have an HOA agreement. We don't have dues. We don't do any of that stuff. This is a whole bunch of sovereign people. They own their own land, do their own thing. They have their own. And it's interesting to watch because we all do it a little bit different. Yeah. The way someone raises chickens over here may be different than the way we do it, but it's built on the theory of clan sovereignty trumps everything. And so, me, the Tag clan, that's me, my wife, and my kids. Mm-hmm. But a bunch of clans together, we build and we get what's called the crew. And then that crew is really what makes things work. Beyond that is the MAG, which is a whole bunch of crews, different communities, that come together. I know, Bobby Spags, for example. That'd be an example of that. And then out there's the mind beyond that, which is all the like-minded people. It's you, JJ. It's all the people that I know from this world.
Sure.
And so what we do is we use all of them to help, get a little bit stronger and help, take over a county, as I told you that I would do someday, right? Earliest conversations, but.
No, I like that because you're focusing on the people that are geographically close to you, mm-hmm. right? Like the idea is that you start with your concentric circle, which is your crew, and then go out to the people that are physically close to you. Because in a real disaster, the only people that you're going to actually get help from are the people who are actually in your area.
That's
people, not until later on are people from the outside going to be able to come in. And if it was a nationwide thing, people from the outside aren't ever going to come in.
Right.
You're relying on those people that are close. And I think that's the right mindset to have. There's a lot of people I've talked to out there who, they have their MAG that are separated by 100 miles, or something like that. And it's like, I don't know how reliant you should be on those people showing up because, things get pretty sketchy when, the power goes down and everybody loses control. So.
Yeah, what I'll tell everybody, if they didn't hear it when I said it the first time, if I could give you any piece of advice when it comes to communities, focus in on the sovereignty of the clan, the individual clan, the JJ clan, the Tag clan.
Right.
Make sure that is rock solid. And if you can get the sovereignty of the clan set, every next step you build all the way out becomes a whole lot easier. And I think it's with that sovereignty that we've managed to be around as long as we are and to be as big as we are. Because you go out to the outer circle locally, we're 1,000 people.
Yeah. Nice. That's good.
Yeah. So
that's just basically folks in your county that you've kind of made contact with and started to network with and started to incorporate into your plans. And
it's probably 6 or 7 counties. If you look at just my county itself, and I'm talking about now we're talking about the crew, right? Because it's the clan, the crew, the mag, the mind, right? Mm-hmm. So the clan, my home, and then the crew, which is the local area, we're probably approaching 100.
Gotcha.
These are people that, I see almost every single day. Not all of them, but somebody, right? My homestead, I bet you today I had 4 visitors today that needed to borrow a jackhammer or a ladder or something.
Yeah.
That we're here today. But as you get out within 200 miles, there's about 1,000 of us.
Gotcha. And that's that extra ring of folks there. Okay.
That's correct.
So what's going on with Grid Down? Is there any developments with Grid Down or anything? I haven't really talked to you about that for a while.
Yeah. It's I don't know if I've ever told you this story of how even Grid Down came to be, but Andrew. Me and Andrew have been in business and lots of different things together, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. But what we thought is we could figure out a way to build a more turnkey system, primarily for our community, so that I could help our community get off grid and save a bunch of money. Because everything I was seeing was, you get into a 40 kilowatt hour system, and from a battery perspective, right, a 40 kilowatt hour system, they were wanting 50, 60, 70,000 bucks. And then it was complicated. And so we built Gridbound on the effort to try to cut that number down and then make it easier to install and easier to do those things. So that's why we contacted all these companies to manufacture all these things. And then it just kind of took off. And now we're sending them all over the place. We're, all over the United States, we've sent, whole Grid Down systems to. And so what we're doing at Grid Down, as far as what comes next, is we're going to continue to try to evolve the easy button. And I think people are afraid generally of solar, when the truth is it's not that complicated, but it's easy to say that, right? Because I do it. But
sure,
I think that if we can continue to master that easy button, and I'm talking about literally get to a place where the side of the box says PV panels, red and black, and the other side of the box says to house. You get it like that. I think it'll help a lot of people get off grid. And ultimately, being off grid, what it does is it gives you options and it gives you choices, and it makes it to where you're not, beholden to the stroke of the power company, or you're not beholden to the stroke of, the EGS or any of those systems that say you can't have your power today.
Yeah.
And so really, from what started as just a goal to equip our community, has turned into a company that now is selling solar systems all over the place.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And I saw an article not long ago or actually just today, that's talking about how Texas is going to, or very likely going to start asking customers to, restrict their consumption during the peak summer daytime hours.
Right. When they need it.
Well, and they're asking now, but how long is it before they're telling, you know what I'm saying? And before they start the rolling blackouts like California has.
Well, I think you're going to see it in every city. I think our, electrical system and our grid is not very modernized. It hasn't been for a long time. And I know this, I'm involved in it all the time. Mm-hmm. The co-ops, and I've spoke to many of them in efforts of, EMP Shield or, some of the other things, having conversations with them, and they don't want to spend any money. They don't want to invest anything. They don't want to do anything that changes rates. And so the system just continues to get older as they, just try to play the political middle line.
Yeah.
And, I think it's coming to every city, but it's not just power, JJ, it's water.
Yeah. Water's a big one too.
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
And clean water, you better get on it and take care of it for yourself, because you may not be able to get it someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you doing much rainwater collection out there, or what? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we collect
here wells too, probably.
Yeah, I do. I actually have 3 water sources, and I can use all 3 of them in my house. But as far as rainwater collection, I have 10,000 gallons of rainwater storage right now.
Nice.
The community building will start with 1,500 gallons, but I'll grow it as time goes on, and try to get it up to 4,000 or 5,000 gallons of storage capacity. And then I have a well, and it's a 100-foot deep well that we pump into a 2,000 gallon holding tank so that it's always full. And it's nice, clean, beautiful water. Where I live, there's not a lot of on my land. There's not a lot of chemicals. There's not a lot of. It's just good, clean water. But then I also have a series of ponds, and my big pond is 2.5 acres, and it's 21 feet deep, and I can pump that water
nice
with solar up to the house as well. But
talk a little bit about that community building. How did you get people to come together to fund it, or are you funding it yourself, or like what's the scoop there?
Yeah, so a little bit of all of it. Obviously, I'm carrying the biggest load financially for it, but I'm building it on my land, so that's
Okay.
probably fair. But yeah, so when we decided we were going to do it, I had all of the 2x6s for the exterior frame donated. I had a pallet OSB donated. I had the house wrap donated. I had all the windows donated. I bought all the metal for the roof at an auction, so that was pretty cheap. All the plumbing that went underneath the concrete was donated from a lady in Arkansas, believe it or not, who sent me a message, who heard me talking about it and sent me a message, said, "Hey, can I buy the plumbing?" I'm like, "Sure," you know. And so there have been hands all over the United States that have helped put this community building in place. And what we're actually going to do with it is every single person that contributed, I'm going to router them a sign out of wood, and we're going to hang it all over the inside of the community building. So it will say, you know, the Tag Clan, or it will say the Silver Lining Clan, which is the lady who bought the plumbing. You know, I'll put Silver Lining on the tent. I'm going to screw it to the wall because that's part of community. So a little bit of all of it. You know, I've had some donated and some's come out of my pocket.
And is that going to be used for like weddings and things like that in the meantime, or, you know, just kind of whatever?
So a few things. So the first thing is a Sunday service.
Okay.
And so I am very anti-establishment. Anyone who knows me knows this. And so we want to create our own systems and our own processes. I'm not big on organized religion. I think it's as corrupt as the justice system, which is corrupt as the education system, which is corrupt as the finance system, personally. And so, you know, we're going to be in a place where we can do Bible study, and we can do some of those things there, but also potlucks. You know, we get together as a community a lot. You know, I'm often renting a place that'll house us because we've gotten so big that, it, you know, a typical, you know, afternoon lunch will have 80 people there. Well, that gets more and more complicated the bigger that gets. And so, you know, it will house that. But then also our festivals. We have the Freeman Festivus in November, which is our holiday for the community. You know, it's right between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's the Festivus for the rest of us.
Nice.
And so, you know, it will house that. But then there's other things. You know, I got Joe Salatin coming down here, I think in the spring. And so he'll do a 2-day class there. But anybody in the community that wants to teach a class or wants, I mean, I donate it to go do it. You know, if Angela and Garen want to do a food processing class, which is something they're real into, you know, they could do that. If Jeff and Louise want to teach about Dexter cows, because that's their passion, it gives them a place to go do that. And so it's really kind of just all of it. And I smile to myself because, again, I'm a prepper first. And I look at it like the other side. I'm like, okay, this is great, but, you know, what else can it be? But we're really excited to get it turned on. I'll bet you in 2 weeks I've got the building stood. And awesome. Yeah, and so we can hopefully start doing stuff in it pretty quick.
Nice. That's very cool. So you said you built a new pond. Talk about building a pond. What does that take?
A bulldozer,
dig a big hole, right? You get a bulldozer and dig a big hole. Do you have to put in like bentonite or clay or anything, or is that not
here?
Okay.
And the ground here is, depending upon where you buy at, is somewhere between 8 inches and 3 foot of topsoil, and then 27,000 miles of clay. When we were digging my big pond, we had a couple boulders in the bottom, but it was pretty much clay till we got all the way down to 21 feet. And then we dug the key trench, which goes another 15 feet beneath that. And down there, we hit a rock shelf at another 10 feet that was about 6 inches thick, and it dug it right out of there, you know. So there's just not a lot of rock here. It's pretty much all clay. But yeah, so my big pond is fed by a series of 5 creeks, and they all wind down into it. And so what I've been working on doing is going back up those creek beds and putting smaller dams in so that I can create a series of ponds. And that does a lot of things for me. It allows me to rotate my animals into different paddocks, and yet they have their own water source, which means I'm not carrying water, which means it's less energy, right?
Yeah.
So it does all of that. It also allows me to store more water, which I think is just critical in this world. I think water is going to be the issue coming at us. And so I think that's, you know, obviously very, very important. So yeah, it just gives me lots of flexibility and lots of options and lots of water.
Yeah. Which is good. No, that's awesome. Are you, with 21 feet deep, do you have enough fall on your property to look at hydroelectric or anything like that, or no?
Yeah, probably not. Well, I mean, here's the thing. If I was to open the pipe, so in my big pond, we put a pipe under the dam, a drawdown pipe that I could draw the thing down. If you open that thing up, it's coming out with force. I mean, it is something fierce.
Yeah.
But the problem is, in order to get that to spin the wheel, I'd be draining my pond.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to do that. Yeah.
It would kind of defeat the purpose. So I could, but no, not here. I don't have enough elevation. I'm in Kansas, and I know most people think Kansas is flat. I live in the hilly part of Kansas, but it's still, compared to where you live,
not enough fall between the dams to be able to do anything. Okay. Gotcha. And how are you doing as far as livestock and all that kind of thing? What do you got on the place now?
Oh yeah. So I think this is the evolution of prepping. And it starts out as a couple cans in a pantry somewhere. Eventually you learn that you can't store enough, and eventually you start figuring out what's next. And so we went down the road of storing our energy in the tree and our food on the hoof and in the seed. And so as far as animals go, we have lots of chickens, turkeys, geese, guineas. We raise Dexter cows. For those, we got some sheep, a couple pigs.
Are the Dexter cows those short, long-haired ones?
No, you're thinking of the Scottish ones. These are short-haired. They're about, so a full-grown male is probably 1,200 pounds.
Okay.
But smaller than like an Angus. Right, an Angus is going to be a lot heavier. But the reason we do Dexter is when the meat's really good, the milk's really good, but they're 3/4 of a cow. And my wife's a little thing, and she wants to be able to manhandle them. And so that's why we raise them. And plus, they're very docile. Like if you went out into the field, they come up and rub their head on you, and they want loving. And
that's cool.
Yeah. So that's what we raise.
That's awesome. And you mentioned gardening earlier. What are you guys hitting on the gardening?
So we have a big annual garden, actually 2 of them that sit side by side. And this is where we raise, your broccoli and your tomatoes and your peppers and, and all of those. And it's roaring. It's done really, really well. We've gotten a lot of rain, but we also have all of them in big swells and covered in mulch. And so you don't have to really water them all that much. I've got a partnership with the Buffalo Seed Company out of Kansas City, and they grow bio-regionally adapted seeds that are grown specifically for this region.
Oh, cool.
And so that helps also not being able to water and use those kinds of resources. But so there's that. And then we have a big food forest too, where we plant all the annual stuff. So the rhubarb and the asparagus and the apple trees and the peach trees. And, those are all in a whole different area with companion planting. And God, I could never even quote it all, but, blueberries and currants and comfrey and elderberry. And I mentioned rhubarb. Anyway.
Yeah,
lots of fruit trees, lots of stuff growing in there. And every summer when we start down this road, just like we did this year, me and my wife went to the nursery and what don't we have? And so this year we had currants, for example, which is something I'd never grown before. Yeah, and we just keep packing it in and keep packing it in. And again, because I'm a prepper first, so I look at it as now I've got somewhere to house 30 people. How the hell am I going to feed them?
Sure. Well, that's what I was going to ask is do you sell that stuff on like a roadside stand, or do you just give it away, keep it, can it?
I do not think it makes any sense to sell stuff off the farm until such time I'm 100% sufficient for myself.
Okay.
And so whatever we have in excess, we're either giving to other community members or bartering for something they have that we don't. Like maybe I'll trade for some sweet corn because my crop didn't do so good or whatever it is. But nope, we don't sell anything.
All right. Very cool. Very cool.
What about you?
And what's that?
What about you? You got a lot of new stuff going on? What's going on in your world?
Not a whole lot right now. I'm 12 months out from retiring, and we'll move from New England to somewhere in the world. Right now, it's sort of looking like we're probably going to be going to North Carolina. My daughter and my son both live. Well, the son lives in Richmond, Virginia, and the daughter is living in Charlotte. So we're kind of looking like we're going to try to find someplace around Raleigh or somewhere in the middle, somewhere out rural, obviously. But, that's just because they're at the age where they're going to have kids and we don't want to miss out on that, So I tried to convince them to come and, live in the Midwest somewhere on a farm, like a little compound or whatever. But they were like, thanks, Dad, but we're going to pass. So, I understand that. And today I've been working on a car. I picked up a commuter car and I had to put on wheel bearing assemblies and new lower ball joints. And so I've been dealing with that, getting it all squared away and everything. I've got a pulsation in the brakes, and I've replaced the rotors in the brake pads. And I've got a pulsation in the brakes at like 65 miles an hour. And it's just driving me crazy trying to hunt down what it is. So I'll figure it out eventually. I'll just eventually replace everything until it's all new. And then, but that's been most of what I've been dealing with this weekend.
Well, congratulations on the retirement. Do you know Billy Bond from Permanent Package Farms? So he's in North Carolina. He's an original Kansas boy, but he's in North Carolina, and he is a hell of a permaculturist and a hell of a farmer. He lives in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to make that connection if that's where you guys end up.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
No, he's a good one, and he's trustworthy. He's a good man.
Very cool.
I think very, very fond of Billy Bond. So I got to spend a lot of time with him over the years.
Think I've heard the name. Does he have a YouTube channel or something?
Yeah.
Or does he?
Yeah, he has the Pimpcast Permaculture Show.
Okay.
Permaculture is my passion. Pimp. Funny.
Nice.
Yeah, and then Permaculture Farms, which is his YouTube channel. I've spoke with him a lot. Like when I go and travel the speaking scenes, and I'm out there speaking, he seems to be at a lot of them that I'm at.
Okay.
And so, I've got to spend a lot of time with him, but he's a good guy. But I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked him when he settled into North Carolina, because he left Kansas to go to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so what about the population? I mean, how many people are going to, when you land in North Carolina, how many people are going to reach you in a tank of gas?
A lot. That's the problem with North Carolina. And anywhere, actually, it's the problem anywhere east of the Mississippi, honestly. Is the population density. It's not optimum. And I've done a whole video where I kind of broke down, like, it's sort of like what you did, where you kind of get your categories on what you're looking for and all that kind of stuff. And North Carolina wasn't in, the top 8 states that I would have, probably originally chosen to live in. East Tennessee is one place that we thought about going to as well. It's just a little bit further. And, my wife is kind of insistent on wanting to be a couple hours from the kids so that she can wake up and go and, see potential grandbabies when they come.
Can't really blame that.
Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time. I have a hard time fighting against that one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to have to make the best of what I can. But we'll try to identify, places that are more rural and all that kind of thing from what we can. A lot of it's just going to depend on the property that we pick and all that, and what comes available. And then the other factor in there too is my post-retirement job. Like, I'm still going to have to work and all that kind of stuff. So, wherever I end up getting a job is going to also be largely, a factor on where that's at and everything too. So I don't know. I've kind of been contemplating. I recently have got I've been getting my EPA certifications with handling refrigerant for HVAC. And I've gone through and I got my 609 and my 608 type 1, and I'm studying for the 608 type 2 test, or the universal test, to be able to handle refrigerants, because I had some quotes on replacing my air conditioners here, and I was dumbfounded at how much they're charging to put in air conditioning units. I mean, they 2 different companies quoted me like $28,000 just to put in an evaporator coil and a condenser and run the line sets and charge it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you are effing crazy. Like, you're insane. You think I'm going to pay $28,000 to do that? So, I found a company that was willing to just order me the parts. I told them I'll run the line set, I'll put everything in and all that kind of stuff. And then if I get my type 2 certification, I'll just go ahead and charge it and all that kind of jazz and everything as well. But honestly, I'm kind of contemplating opening up an HVAC business, just doing like AC replacements and like just basic residential stuff. Yep. Because as I've been studying and everything and learning about it, these systems are pretty simple. Like, they're not that difficult, and you could charge 50% of what a lot of these guys are charging and still make a really, really good living, and just being honest with people and all that kind of thing. And so I don't know. It's a once in a lifetime certification. So once you get the certification, you've got it forever. And if you need to use it, you can. And
I think that's smart. I think getting into, and this is even for kids coming up, being an electrician, being a plumber, being an HVAC, being those jobs, welder. Here's another one.
And that welding, yeah,
they pay good.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They really do.
I think I read an article that said that for every 10 skilled tradesmen who are getting out of the business today, only 2 are returning. 2 new people are coming to replace them, which means won't be long, and there'll be such a need for them. It'd be super profitable. I think that's super smart.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I think with AI, I 5 years ago, I think people thought that AI was going to take out the blue collar trades. And then about 2 years ago, everybody realized, no, it's going to be the white collar. Those are going to be the first ones to go. I mean, like right now, being an attorney it's not a great career field to be in, because attorneys, they're not going to need that many attorneys, in the next 10, 15 years, probably. And I mean, I think eventually you might get to the point where AI might start to replace some blue collar stuff, but it's going to take 25 years probably.
Yeah,
it's going to take a while.
I don't know how they'll do it. I mean, they're going to pull up in a truck and have a robot get out of the truck to fix your AC. I mean, I don't see how that works, but maybe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's good. That's down the road. Like that's way down the road, right?
Yeah, by then.
But I think the white collar jobs right now, they're in trouble.
They're in big trouble.
I mean, when you look at the combination of the boomer generation retiring en masse, right? I mean, they're more than half of them are already into retirement, and they're moving in quickly. And then Generation X is a small generation. I mean, millennials are pretty big, but Generation Z is tiny, and they're too young. So I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you're talking about that, I was thinking to myself, how, the system's array, and, maybe that's one of the way it combats itself, a little bit, it forces people back into those blue collar jobs, back into that type of work, which is what built this country, right? It's what built the infrastructure. What did all of that was all those craftsmen, who are out there. And maybe that problem kind of solves itself a little bit, because there isn't as much need for a politician or an attorney or a banker. Right.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about it self-correcting, but you're kind of right. It kind of will probably.
I hadn't either until you said that. I'm like, I wonder if that'll self-correct some, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it very well could. I mean, it's because all contractors across the board, all the ones that I've dealt with, they have more work than they can handle. They don't feel the need to call you back. They don't care if they show up on time. They don't have customer service. They don't, you know what I mean? Like they just they just know that you're going to use them because there's nobody else out there to take it. Right. So, I don't know. I think it makes sense to get into that field as well. So,
I don't know. Yeah. When I was coming up, I was in white collar for a long time until I retired, but I built houses all the way through high school and kept that side up. Just always felt good knowing I had that to fall back on. If I ever needed it, I could go be a craftsman again. Never needed to. I got to retire, before that. But I think it's a must. And for you parents out there, if your kids want to go to college, make them go to trade school first. Make them spend 2 years while they're in high school, because most high schools do this. I mean, both of my boys do it.
Oh,
by the time they graduated, by the time they graduated high school, both of them had 2 years of trade school. Then I'm like, go chase your dreams. Do whatever you want to go do. If you
you can always fall back on that being a welder or being a whatever. Go
learn something and then go chase your stars and go be all you can be, and whatever that is. Well, I have one son who wants to be a famous musician. He's still playing in a band, but he has those technical skills if he has to fall back on. My other son works for State Farm and has done himself really, really well. But again, if that stuff, AI could affect that in a big way.
Sure.
But he'll have that. He went and took electronics for his trade school, but he'll have that to fall back on as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, make him do it. I would.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about people who are wanting to get into off-grid systems. Let's say if somebody's gonna, like me, like somebody in my position, I'm gonna retire here in the next year. I've been looking at doing like a barn dough or a manufactured home, or I don't really know, a modular home. I'm not sure what route we're going to go, but it'll be something that is probably going to be kind of non-traditional. What do you recommend for folks to kind of get educated on it and understand what the requirements are, and then like how do they go about getting going on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first step is understand what the rules are in the county that you live in.
Okay.
I mean, because they can make your life a pain, right? And that's a real easy thing. All you got to do is walk down to at least in my area, you walk down to the county courthouse, go into land and planning side where you get a building permit, same place, say, hey, what are the rules? And typically, like where I live, what they do is they just printed me out a form, which basically here there are no rules. Basically, all they told me was that they could not apply property tax value to your solar system here because that's some federal rule that they can't tax on the solar system itself. So I pay no property tax on my solar system. I pay it on my house.
Gotcha.
But but not on the solar system. That's pretty much all they told me. So I think I would start right there. The other thing is, and I relate to this question because when I went down this road, as many of you guys who know my story, I left the corporate world over COVID. They made some demands I was unwilling to live with. And so that's what I left when I started and down the journey. I didn't know anything about solar. So what I did is I got on YouTube, and I started watching videos and I started researching companies. And because I knew that I did not know what I did not know.
Yeah.
And so some of the big things for me was, to buy a modular system, buy something I could expand. Because one, it's a lot of money and I wasn't going to finance anything. So how can I start a project and get something basics in that'll charge my drills, do the basics, run a TV or whatever it is, and then something I could expand upon. And so I actually went with the Snyder system for my first system. After tons of research, I looked at Midnight Solar, I looked at Solarc, I looked at all of them. And I ended up going with Snyder because to me, it was the most modular setup and it was the one that I could make the most mistakes and still be okay. And so that's the way I went, which is actually kind of what spawned Grid Down. It's that whole process. Because for me, putting one inverter in with one charge controller or two charge controllers and some panels was pretty simple.
Right.
But what started getting complicated was now all of a sudden I need 2 and 3 7,000 watt inverters and they have firmware and you got to get them talking to each other and you got to link them all together. I spent more time, energy on getting my system to communicate with itself than I did actually installing the system.
Yeah.
And again, which is what kind of spawned Grid Down. And so this is why, like at Grid Down, we have them pre-commissioned at the factory. So like, let's say you buy a 56 kilowatt hour system, which means it has more than one inverter. At the factory, they bring both those inverters up, get them all working together and everything, take them back down, put them in their pallet and ship them to you. So they're pre-commissioning all that stuff to make it a little bit easier. But I think the advice I'd give you guys is read. Right. And just understand how it works. Like I said, when I started, I didn't understand what they were. Now I understand. I always tell people who ask me to explain solar to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, on a simplistic note, your panels are nothing more than how fast do you want to charge your batteries or how well do you want to charge them in a low light condition? Well, why does this matter? Well, because we're going to get into December and we're going to go 2 weeks without any sun. That's why it matters.
Yeah.
And so how well do you want to be able to charge in those low light conditions when you don't have direct sun? So the more panels you have, right, the better you're charging in those environments. Or the flip side, like right now, my system's big enough by 10 o'clock in the morning, my batteries are fully charged, which means I'm dumping power the rest of the day. I can't use it all. There is just no reason for it. So that's a panel. Your batteries are nothing more than how long do you want to go without sun? And your inverter is nothing more than how much power do you want on demand? If you just think of those three things, you can create whatever you want. You can answer all of your own questions, right? And so that's what I would encourage people to go down the road. But also, if you want, go to griddown.com. There's lots of calculators on the website. Like you can enter, and whoever you buy from. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. Regardless of who you buy from, go get free, right? Go get to a place where that electric company and the system don't have stroke over you, because if they have stroke over you, they're going to use it.
Right.
I promise you they're going to use it. Anyway, go to griddown.com and what you'll see is there's calculators. You can put in all your appliances. You can put in what you need. It'll spit out the system requirements you need. It's not that complicated if you just take the time to read it.
What is the most typical thing that gets purchased from you guys? Like what is the most common system or whatever?
Yeah. Well, the two most, and they're about half and half, is the 41.5 kilowatt hour system and the 54 kilowatt hour system.
Okay.
Which are both pretty big size systems. Grid Down's got all the smaller portable stuff coming. Here shortly, you're going to be able to buy a 8 kilowatt hour.
Oh,
right. Okay. Like a real, not real small, not like I'm going to charge a computer, but a small cap type system. Yeah. Grid Down will be coming out with those, but today the big ones, it's the 40s and 50 kilowatt hours, but we can do them up to 128 kilowatt hours and even into some shipping containers that will power a small village.
Oh wow.
We don't advertise them, but we can do them.
What do you guys put on the community building that you did?
54.
54. Okay.
Yep. So which comes with 4 batteries, 4 13.8 kilowatt hour batteries and 2 inverters. And but that's more power than we'll ever need. But for us, because we're going to have a stage where we can have a band, I've got some connections to some 80s bands from my Hair Lord days when I was in high school, so we can have some bands, and there can be some weddings, and there can do this. So that's why I've kind of bought it up a little bit as far as size wise goes. But yeah, I bought a 54.
Okay. And then that comes with, what is it, 28, the kit off the site, 28 panels or something like that?
Yeah. So I didn't buy the panels in the kit from Grid Down because last year, I love Community. Did I ever tell you, JJ, how awesome Community is? So last year I ran into a deal where I could buy 565 watt brand new panels. I could buy them for $104 a panel.
Oh, wow.
But the trick was I had to take a whole semi-load.
Oh, geez.
Okay. So this was a lot. And so I got on the phone and got on the text, and I started sending it out, and pretty quick we had sold all of them. We have a kind of a rule in our community. We don't make money on our community. Yeah. So they were sold for what I paid for them. But we got enough together that we could buy a whole semi-load. So about 10 days later, a semi pulls down my driveway, and I've got skid loaders here, and we're ready to go. And we unload it, and one trailer shows up, and it's loaded, and it's gone. So anyway, I bought a bunch of 565 watt panels in that deal. So I didn't need to buy any through Grid Down. I just bought the actual Redoubt system itself because I already had a whole bunch of panels sitting here.
Were those new or used?
Brand new.
Holy cow, that's a smoking deal.
That's
what, 20 cents a watt or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that wow.
Yeah, but the trick is the only way I got it, again, I had to buy a semi-load, and you're not getting that without the purchasing power of a community, which is one of the powers of community. And we've done it for so many things. We run across a deal. We bought some Hardy Lap siding, that Home Depot's got right now on the shelf at $14.87 a stick. I could buy it for $5 a stick, but I had to take a semi-load.
Nice.
So pick up the phone.
Yeah. Is that what you did the building in?
That's right.
The Hardy board or whatever. Yep. Is that? I mean, I've heard that's kind of the best siding going, isn't it? That's it's got like concrete ties, sort of. Yeah. It's like
it is. It's just made. It's a thin piece of concrete.
Yeah.
They're really good at being wet. They're not good at being submerged. So like I would never put them in a place where it's going to sit in standing water.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, you can hit them with a weed eater. You can hit them with things, and they just won't just shatter apart. It's good siding. I really enjoyed it a lot, and we bought 1,800 sticks that day.
Wow.
But you got to have, again, the purchasing power of community, in order to do it. But I love doing stuff like that. Love doing it.
Yeah, that's a great deal. I mean, that's saving on a big scale right there. That can really make a lot more. You have a lot more possibilities when you can buy in bulk like that.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, and it affects so many people. That siding is going to impact 7 homesteads. Nice. Those solar panels are going to impact 12 or 13 homesteads. That this is money, instead of it costing them $6,000 for panels, they're going to spend $2,000, or they're going to spend $1,500. Well, that other $4,500, guess what, man? That goes so many other places. That buys a quarter of their solar system, or that buys, the metal go on the roof of their house, or whatever it is. And so we joke internally about how you got to learn how to make, $1 too. And if you can do that, you'll be very, very successful in this lifestyle. If you can't do that, you're going to struggle the whole way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Somebody in here in the chat earlier asked, what happens if they turn the water off? Mm-hmm. We were talking about, we were talking about water and water infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. What do you recommend for people to do, on smaller scales and all that kind of stuff to be ready to deal with their own water situation?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we can do, but I think first let me just answer the question. If they turn it off and you don't have any solutions, you're going to be begging from the mercy of our King.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So, I mean, obviously rainwater is the easiest to set up. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. Hooking a rainwater system into your system in your house is not that hard. It really is nothing more than your rain's collected in a tank, which goes through a sediment filter, then a pump, then a pressure tank, then a series of filters, and enters your house. It's really not, it's not rocket science at all to put in, but I would start with rainwater. And, whether it's a 55-gallon drum or, in our case, we do it in 3,000-gallon tanks, in series of those, which, by the way, if you pay attention, Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, those kinds of stores clearance those things out once a year. So instead of spending $3,000 on a 3,000-gallon tank, you'll be spending $750 on a 3,000-gallon tank.
What do you recommend for pumps? Do you do more of a smaller pump, like an RV kind of thing, a lower pressure, or do you do a big house, like a full house pump, like from a cistern?
Yeah. So mine are half horsepower shallow well pumps. And if you Google it, that's exactly what it'll be. It'll say half horsepower shallow well pump. And they're about $250 a pump. That's what I pump my rainwater with. And you can do it with less power, but I want to be able to.
Similar to like a sump pump?
No, it's it's about 2 feet long, about as round as maybe a pumpkin, a smaller pumpkin, and about that long. So it's got an inlet and an outlet. You just tie the water coming into it, and then it heads out the other way and pumps it through the pressure tank and through all of the filter elements. And I have a video at Life Done Free early on of me building one of these systems, so just how it exactly goes together, if anybody wants to check it out. But I would, rainwater. Now, obviously, a well is a better answer.
Sure.
Right. But not everybody can get to a well living in a city or, on a small lot. I don't know. Rules in every state are different. Here, you could drill a well in your city lot here.
So on the rainwater setup, then you have the pump. Do you have like a pressure tank, I assume, that the pump sits on top of, or that kind of thing? And then you just like basically like a well setup, except it's just drawing from the tank.
Correct.
And then
it's coming in through the bottom of the tank, and it runs through a sediment filter, which is just designed to take the big stuff out.
Okay.
From there, it hits a half horsepower shallow well pump. From there, it hits in my particular case, hits a 55-gallon pressure tank. From there, it runs out of the pressure tank and runs through 3 filters. And those 3 filters are different depending on what I want to take out of them. Right. And you can buy the filter elements, the housing, everything at Menards.
Like a whole house water filter system.
Exactly. It's nothing complicated.
Yep.
And so it runs through them, and then mine go through a UV filter and then enter the house.
Okay.
So for me, you can go into my house and if you're going to flush the toilet, it comes right out of there, or the sink or the washing machine. It all can come right from that system.
Gotcha.
Our drinking water, we go through an additional step. We drink everything through a Berkey, but as far as actual drinking water, but everything else is run off that rainwater system. So it's super easy.
Very cool. Very cool. And then you have your tanks buried, I assume?
So I have some of both.
Okay.
So the cisterns, a buriable tank is different than, those big black tanks you see at like Home Depot. Those aren't buriable.
Right. That's got to be above ground.
Yep. That's why they're black, to keep the mold out, all of that. Yeah. But typically a buriable water tank, if you're buying plastic, will be white. It'll have big ridges on it. And that's what helps keep it sunk underground. Right. So for me, I'm collecting, I have 2 1,750-gallon cisterns that are buried full time underground. And that's actually the water we can use from rain during the winter, because here it gets cold enough, you'll freeze your above ground tanks. I got to drain all my above ground tanks.
Gotcha.
In the community building, I bought another one to bury so that, again, there's winter water. So spring, summer, and fall water is rainwater in an above ground tank. Winter water is coming out of a cistern.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, but it's easy. I tell you something, JJ, and for everybody says, yeah, it's easy for you. I'm telling you guys, I didn't know anything about it when I started it. And I was actually super intimidated of the water system. I was more intimidated of the water system than I was of the solar system.
Really?
Yeah, I was. I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? Because I had this thing in my head. Okay, so I've got a well coming in, rainwater coming in, and a pond coming in. How do I make it where if I want to wash clothes with one and shower with the other, how do I do all that? And took me some time, and I wasted some money learning it. But it was actually.
What did you do wrong? What was the mistakes that you made?
Yeah, so the big one was winter. I didn't count on having to drain my pumps, for example, as thoroughly as I have to.
Gotcha.
Because there's days here where it'll be minus 30 degrees, right? In that, second week of January, it's brutal. And so I bet you I've blown 2 or 3 pumps just because I didn't get enough water out of them.
Gotcha.
When I go to drain the system. So, and then also your pump functions better closest to the tank. So the first time I did it, I had set the pump way away from the tank, closer to the inlet of the house. And man, I couldn't make it work. I just couldn't get it to work right. It just wasn't working right. Where it worked, well, research. Ah, man. So once I moved it back closer to the pump, now it works great. Well, I had to tear that whole system out that I just put in.
Right? So basically, you want to have the pump sitting within so many feet so that it doesn't have a lot of head, or it doesn't have a lot of suction. Basically, it's better at pushing the water than it is at sucking the water. Is that kind of the idea?
Absolutely correct. So like right now on my rainwater system, my pump is 5 feet from my tank.
Okay.
When I had it before, the first time I put it in, it was 15 feet.
So it just 10 feet made that big of a difference.
Oh yeah. I couldn't get it to pump at 15 feet.
Huh. Was it any elevation change?
Yeah.
Or-
So like right now it's almost at the ground level the tank is, and it works great. When I did it the first time, it was maybe 4 feet up, but with a full tank, it would have still had enough pressure. Water could go into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't suck well. It pushes great.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah.
And it actually, what happened is it would pump a little, but the pressure tank, the pressure switch, right? When you turn on a faucet and the water just automatically comes out, that's due to a pressure switch.
Mhm.
It would just sit there and chatter. Like I couldn't get it to, and then the research I did said, move it closer to the tank. I did, stopped all my problems.
Huh. Well, that's good to know. You need to write a book or something, and get us all squared away on this.
It'll be called Blind Squirrel Finds Nut.
It's pretty good.
Name my book.
Pretty good. So what else is going on in your world?
Oh man, work's busy. I still I sit on the board of directors of EMP Shield, so I still, do that, and grid down and freesteading. What's that?
I saw an article that EMP Shield is partnering with Genesis Water Systems.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this. I can't wait to get one and play with it. They're talking about their cube will pull 128 gallons of water out per day just out of the air with low energy cost.
Is that
you got all my attention there?
The article I saw made it look like it was more of like big scale stuff. Do they have small scale stuff for like off-grid preppers and stuff too?
Yeah, they're beta testing the home unit right now.
Okay, cool.
And so that's the partnership is EMP Shield's going to harden their big stuff for the powers that be and make sure that it's EMP protected. But the other side of that argument is they've start producing the civilian model, then grid down and some of the other things will become distributors for that cube. I can't wait to play with one.
That's pretty cool. So what's the approximate size and cost and all that kind of thing of this cube?
Yeah, again, I've never seen it, right? So you have to asterisk everything that I'm going to say, right? Because everything I get third-partied in it. But, from what I understand, it'll be, a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot cube. And, cost will be $18,000 to $20,000 as they start. But you know how that works with technology. You get it running a little bit. Yeah. Those costs come down, dramatically once you get it. So, again, I will do
128 gallons per day out of the air?
Per day out of the air.
How much humidity is that? Like
I don't know what they're requiring in that, but I bet it's a 70% humidity mark. We're in there somewhere to get that. Because I would imagine that the production, now they've not told me this, but the production in Phoenix, Arizona would be far less.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean,
it makes sense to me versus here, which is humid, or Florida might perform the best, right? Super humid. Right. Maybe they could get 200 gallons a day out of it. But certainly looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. Even I mean, God, even 50 gallons a day would gigantic. I mean, most people in a disaster type situation aren't going to be using that kind of water. You know what I mean? Not on a normal day-to-day basis, they might, but so you could pretend. I mean, 128 gallons a day, you could probably potentially run your whole house off of that. Yeah, even in normal times.
Yeah, because your average shower, is putting out 2 gallons a minute. Let's just say. You're in there 5 minutes, you've used 10 gallons, right? So, your clothes is going to use, 5 or 8 gallons of water. I think you could get with 128 gallons a day. You're also watering your animals, as long as you don't get too big. If you've got a milk cow or two, a handful of chickens, you might be able to run your whole homestead off something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Huh. Yeah, I'll be interested to see that. I'm sure you'll do videos on it or whatever.
Oh, guaranteed. I want to get one in my hands. Yeah, I want to actually film it and say, hey, this is what it's actually doing. Because you know how that is. Just like a solar panel. I've never seen a solar panel reach its maximum.
Right.
Now I'm not out there testing it every day. Like I'm not sitting there watching it, but I've never seen it, fulfill its promises. So like when I build my solar system, I always figure half.
Yeah. That's probably a pretty safe estimate. Yeah. I was going to say on a good day, you're probably getting 80%, or something like that.
Right.
But,
right. Yeah. So we just figure half when we're building everything, and then I've never had any problem with that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, life's good, man. It's a challenge though. I tell people this all the time. Living this way it's all about management because and being efficient. Working hard and being efficient are not the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
We got up this morning early, and I went out and I had 27 tons of gravel to move around. Got that done. Had to move some stuff from one place to another. We're getting ready to build a new barn, so we're getting ready to get started on the foundation of it. And out there in the heat all day long. Got to be about 2 o'clock. I looked at my wife, we'll go get some ice cream. So we went to Dairy Queen, got a Blizzard.
Yeah.
Came home, and then went back to work. So
yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. All right, well, I think that's about it. We're getting close to an hour here. I appreciate you coming by and talking with us about all this stuff.
Always.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys can want to get his, do you have a YouTube or a Rumble channel? Have you?
I do. Life Done Free.
Yep. At Life Done Free on Rumble, and then on YouTube as well. You can also go to griddown.com. You can check out the home battery systems that are EMP hardened. Those are pretty cool. You can use the discount code Reality Survival. That'll save you 7% on those. Yep. And if you guys are wanting to protect your vehicles, your homesteads, your UTVs, your solar panels from an EMP, you can go to empshield.com. Also use the discount code Reality Survival to save $50. And I would also, I need to get you, while I got you here, I want to get you on our app, the American Prepping Academy app. I need to send you an email about that. Because that would be cool. We got 15 other channels on there so far, and I'd love to get yours on there as well.
I'll come, bud. Send me a link, and I'll go in there and we'll get signed up, and we'll go do that. Hey, JJ, thanks for having me on tonight. I watch pretty much every video you release, and I want you to know that it's fun for me because typically it's earmuffs in my ears as I'm driving the skid loader or I'm building fence or I'm doing something. But I listen to pretty much all of them. You got a great audience. You got a great thing going. And I just want to reinforce Kansas is a really great place to live.
Man, I'd love to come up there. If I can get my kids and my wife to change, where they're going to be and everything, I'd have zero problems with that. I grew up in that whole area. I went to school in Maryville, and I mean, I spent a lot of time in Lenexa, Kansas, and all that kind of stuff, and in college and all those years. So I wouldn't have any issues at all about coming there. I just have to convince the governor of it.
That's right.
But we'll see. I mean, you never know, because I keep telling her, I'm like, the kids are young. They might get a job offer 2 months down the road and they're moving to Texas,
That's
and
right.
we got 3 kids, so we can't live near all of them if they live in different places. So we kind of got to pick what's right for us and then do the best that we can.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see how it develops. I mean, 12 months is a long time.
But I
would definitely love to be up there in your guys' neighborhood. That would be awesome.
No matter where you end up, bud, let me know. And I've got connections all over. And we'll, if it's North Carolina, let's get a community set up in North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm all in either way. But Kansas is a great place to live.
Yep. All right, man. Take care.
See you guys. Hold the line, everybody.
All right.